Scott's where I am from Chicago. Recently moved to LA, and I was a motorist in Chicago. I drove everywhere, and I didn't take public transportation for years because when I grew up, I took the bus and then the train to high school, and it was a nightmare experience, and I hated it. Like, especially because when I would come home, I lived in a neighborhood where there were a bunch of gangbangers, and so they would jump on the back of the bus at this one stop, and then they would come up and I'd get smacked in the face or punched in the stomach, and they would rob you and stuff like that. So anyway, of course, I became scared of public transportation. So once I was able to drive, that was it. But then I moved here. And I started seeing, like, a lot of my friends, like, I always thought LA was like this city that you must have a car. You need a car or you're not getting around anywhere without a car. So I came here fully thinking that. And then I did start. I had been to several Scott shows. And I started meeting other people that, like, they take the bus everywhere and the train everywhere. And I was like, oh my God. And now I live in Pasadena, and it turns out there was a new train line up there called the Gold Line. So I was like, sweet, I'll check it out. And I got the tap card, and I started riding the train, and who knew, like, I would love it. It's always air conditioned. You don't really have to pay attention, which is amazing. And I really enjoy taking the train now, and I find it to be a lot of fun. And one of the things I really enjoy about the train, though, is some people get on the train, and I notice they lose themselves in either their iPod or a book or a newspaper. Me, I like to lose myself in what's around me. So I get on the train now and I pay attention to people. I pay attention to what they're doing. I listen to what they're saying. And that is really fun for me. And it's real interesting. It's like, I feel like it's better than watching a movie. You know what I'm saying? Because I get to like listen in, and I eavesdrop. I probably shouldn't, but I can't help myself. I love it. It's so much fun. So that's what I really enjoy, and that's what I think people should do when they're on the train and whatnot, is pay attention to people. Plus, you might hear something interesting. So that being said, I did hear something very interesting once. I was on the Blue Line, the Expo line, and I was coming, I wasn't on the Blue Line, but I had just gone to Santa Monica. I rode the Blue Expo line. I transferred, like Scott mentioned, at the Union Station or whatever, and I was on the Gold Line, and I'm coming home. And there's these two ladies standing next to me, and they're talking, and at first I wasn't paying attention, but then all of a sudden I started hearing stuff that I could relate to. One woman was talking about her son, and how her son was becoming a bit, like not a nuisance, but he started to become like disruptive in class and started acting out and whatnot. And that the teachers had said, she was telling her friend, the teachers, they say my son's very smart and whatnot, but he was just, something started to change. And so her friend asked, well, what do you think that is? What do you think changed? And it turned out that the kid had been getting bored at school. Things weren't moving quick enough for him. And then I was like, oh, wow, I totally know what they're talking about. That was me. I used to get really bored in school. And I was like, oh, interesting. So I'm continue to listen, because I'm like, oh, it sounds like I'm listening to my mom, and talk to one of her friends about me when I was a kid. And the conversation continues. And through the conversation, I realized that the woman recognizes that her son has these issues now, and he's starting to develop out of boredom. And then her friend says, very smartly, well, do you think there's a way you can address that and maybe work with him? And I was like, yes, you women are on the right track. Oh, and let me say this. This is something I forgot to mention. Advice. When you're on the train, a lot of times when I listen to people, sometimes I feel like I should say something. I should chime into that conversation. But I realized, no, maybe not. But this time I could chime in, and it wasn't going to be like a bunch of baloney. Like, I wouldn't have been chiming in just to hear my voice. I would have been chiming in because I was that kid, and I felt like I have a good answer or a good opinion on what you should maybe do with a child like that moving forward. And it seemed like they were just about to get there, because my opinion is work with the kid. If he's bored, that means he needs extracurricular activities. And that's what her friend started to bring up. And I was like, oh my God, awesome, this kid stands a chance because that didn't happen to me and I didn't stand a chance. And then the woman, as I see she's about to say whatever, she goes, no, I think we're just going to let it ride and see what happens and see if he works his way out of it. And I was like, oh my God, you were right there. You were so close. You were so close. You need to work with the kid. And I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth shut. And I sat there and continued to listen to them and just befuddled conversation and talking about this kid and how they're not going to deal with it in hopes that he'll grow out of it. Well, I'm 46, and I have to tell you the truth. I didn't grow out of it until I was much older. And I only wish that I had extracurricular activities, something to eat up the time, something to occupy my mind and keep it active. And I only wish that I had chimed in and said something, because these women, they were so close and the woman was almost there. And I felt like I let that kid down. Like, even though I don't know that kid and I may never see that kid, and if I do, I wouldn't even know if it was him. But I felt like I let him down, like kind of how I felt like I had been let down when I was a child, because no one took the time to do that for me. And I decided from that day, moving forward, that if I heard something and I could give a good opinion or a comment that just wasn't baloney, I didn't just want to hear my voice, but I actually had something to back it up. I could come from a place of experience. I said, moving forward, I promise I won't let stuff like that slide. I will pipe up and say something and hope that, because it wasn't for me, that maybe for someone else, they'll get a better future with some great information. And I love doing that now, man. I just ride the train and take it all in. Thank you very much.